Welcome to Dirt Diaries, the podcast where the women of agriculture get real. From muddy boots to boardrooms, we're digging into the unfiltered stories of the FarmHers, ranchers, and every her shaping the future of ag. This isn't just shop talk, it's real talk. We're covering career paths, big wins, hard lessons, and everything in between. So whether you live it every day or you're just ag curious, pop in your earbuds and get ready. These are the raw, inspiring, and wildly relatable conversations you won't hear anywhere else. Let's dig in. Hey everyone, welcome back to Dirt Diaries. Today, we're honored to sit down with one of agriculture's most influential voices, Chief Aubrey Bettencourt, Chief of the USDA Natural Resources Conservation Service. From growing up on a diversified family farm in California's Central Valley to helping shape conservation policy in Washington, D.C., Aubrey's career has been driven by a passion for protecting natural resources, advocating for farmers and ranchers, and ensuring agriculture remains strong for future generations. In this episode, Aubrey shares her perspective on the critical role agriculture has in feeding the nation and beyond, the importance of keeping working lands in working hands, the future of conservation, and why women are helping lead agriculture into its next chapter. She also opens up about the lessons she learned growing up on the farm, the mentors who shaped her career, and the values she hopes to pass on to her daughter. Let's do it. Let's get dirty with Chief Bettencourt. Okay, well, we'll just kick it off. Welcome to another episode of Dirt Diaries, and I am so honored and have the privilege of sitting down, obviously, via our screens, Chief Bettencourt. Thank you so much. I know you are a busy lady. You're in D.C. right now, so we really appreciate you taking the time to sit down with us and get a little dirty here on the FarmHer Rancher podcast. I'm just going to go right into it. For our viewers, our listeners, anyone who is not familiar with you, give us a little, what do they say, the 30,000, viewpoint, just of who you are, where you came from, and, what led you to where you are today.
Yeah, I'm an unapologetic California farm girl. I think coming from the West and coming from the environment that California is and all that that implies, that puts a little chip on my shoulder in a lot of ways, especially being from the agricultural community there. We are the largest agricultural state in the union, twice the size of the number 2 state of Iowa, but often overlooked, even and predominantly by our own state. We are often told we're not necessary. And yet we bring 50% of the nation's fruits, vegetables, and nuts any given time of the year. And so I'm a 4th generation there. My great-grandfather started in dairy when he immigrated from the Azore Islands from Portugal. My mother's side of the family is preachers, teachers, and loggers and fishermen out of Oregon. We settled in the Central Valley of California, where we farm now diversified road crops and permanent crops. So we do everything from almonds, pistachios, wine grapes, garbanzo beans, onions, garlic, processing tomatoes, alfalfa, pima cotton, and the latest endeavor is pumpkins. But all of that is dependent on what the water provides for us. And so for me, I actually got my degree in history. I not that I wasn't passionate about agriculture, I just was good at history, and loved it, and ended up making my way back to agriculture and farming because of the water piece. Water in the West is everything. Water everywhere is everything. But, our ability to, like I said, make any decision on the farm is what is our water situation for the year. And so I became very interested in how water and then broader natural resource management nexused with agriculture. And how do we ensure that agriculture has access to those resources and is a steward of those resources in a way that provides for the prosperity of us all. And so that's been my career ever since. And I was so blessed right out the gate to find that being in service to my community was in service to my country. As a 9/11 kid, that was very important to me. To find that passion so early, like right out of college, was just a blessing. And so my whole career has been in that space, 1 foot in natural resource management, 1 foot in agriculture. And then having the blessing of being able to boomerang and always come back home to the farm and work with my family has been the ultimate blessing for my career. So from there, I worked in the nonprofit space. I kind of joke I did everything backwards because I'm dyslexic, so why not? I've never actually worked on the Hill. I never ran for office. I have no intention of doing any of that. I started in the nonprofit space and then consulting nationwide, kind of jokingly taught the rest of the country how to try to not be California, learn from our mistakes. And then that allowed me to have a network that gave me the opportunity to serve in Trump 45 as the state executive director for California's FSA. And then I got picked up and sent to the Department of Interior in Trump 45 as the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Water and Science. So I oversaw reclamation and USGS in Washington, D.C. From there, I got out and worked and consulted again in sustainable groundwater management work out west. I ran the Trade Association for American Almonds, the Almond Alliance, where I thought I was going to do natural resources and ended up in a shipping crisis and a trade scenario and took a crash course in global trade. And then had a year with Netafim, which is the global leading company in precision irrigation technology out of Israel. And they're also, I believe, the last manufacturer of drip tape in the United States. They have a manufacturing plant in California, which is wonderful. They have an American-made product. And then was asked to come back and serve again as the chief of NRCS. And one of those things that I didn't, say I set out to do, but, being here for a year, it makes total sense. And those moments where you get to look back and say, wow, this makes sense what I'm doing and why I'm here and I can do this and I can serve and I know how the amazing people that work for NRCS and the amazing people we serve with NRCS is just a gift that keeps on giving. So that's the life in a nutshell right there.
I love that so much. Okay, so man, there's so many different angles I want to go right now, but I'm actually from Chowchilla, California.
Yeah, you're from Chow Chow? All
yes,
right.
I'm from Chowtown. My family farms there still.
Yes.
I've been in Fort Worth for over 13 years now, obviously in this space of, working in agriculture and the television realm. But it's always so funny. I feel like I get on a soapbox time and time again about preaching about California agriculture. And I was just out there not that long ago at a California Women in Ag event. And I was like, we do a poor job of we know how terrible things can be in our state, but we do a poor job of being like, hey, without us, it would be hard for people to eat. And I was like, we need to advocate for ourselves, and we try.
Yep.
We have, limitations, but it's just interesting. So I love that where are you from in the Central Valley? Are you from Central Valley? I'm assuming.
Yeah. So I'm from Hanford.
Oh, okay. Yep.
And I have, coming into this gig, we bought a house in Clovis. And then I lived in Turlock and Hillmar for 3 years. So I know the 99 and Chowchilla back and forth. I know it very, very well.
Makes sense.
That's cool. All right. Now I'm coming to visit you.
I always tell people if they're familiar. Exactly. Yes. And I always tell people, they're like, Chowchilla, that's where you're, and I go, okay, if you know Fresno, Modesto, it's in between there and you'll blink and you'll miss it, but you pass it on the 99.
Hey, we stopped in Chowchilla all the time, going back and forth to my parents' place. There was this one little steakhouse we like to stop at every time. So we would pull over and grab dinner on our way home.
I think that's great. I love that so much. Again, can we go down that path a little bit, just about the importance of California agriculture and what it means to our whole food system a little bit? Because I think sometimes that is a lost thing. People just don't think of California like that. And I'm like, man, without us, again, you mentioned right there, we are the #1 agriculture state. And I mean, water resources are, tightened, obviously. And I'm sure you guys, obviously, family farms on the west side, then kind of the Hanford area, so you really are limited with water. But yeah, I don't know, just talk about the importance of California agriculture and just how people do need to understand, wow, we have to change some of our regulations there and the politics there to, I don't know, make it known.
No, I think, look, first of all, I'm giddy over a Valley Girl, a real Valley Girl, getting to talk with you. But I think the other thing
I love that. Thanks.
Yeah, the other piece to that, to your point, is I think where I've evolved in my thought process about California ag and the that's always been the challenge. How do you get the rest of the country to care about California ag? And where I've evolved to is this: agriculture itself nationwide is 2% of the population, which means it is the minority everywhere, which means wherever it is under attack in this country, and this is what I love about Secretary Rollins, wherever it is under attack in this country, whether it's a blue state or a red state, it doesn't matter, because it is so vitally important to our national health and security that we keep working lands in working hands. And so just because you are a farmer in crazy California doesn't mean that you are of any less importance or value to the national well-being. And so I have so loved that Secretary Rollins has joined in that. She is taking on fights in California because she doesn't care about the politics. She cares about the farmer. She cares about the agriculture. She cares about the implications that this has nationally. And so that's definitely kind of the realm I've gone. You look at California, okay, why do we care about California ag even when we are told by our own elected officials, well, you're less than 2% of the state's GDP, we don't need you. We're the fourth largest economy in the world. The only reason California gets to be the fourth largest economy in the world is because agriculture in California is a massive export industry. Let's just use almonds for an example. And yes, we are the devil nut. Everyone likes to pick on us, but I'll just brag about it.
Hey, that's what my family grows. We do almonds, so I'm like, I get it.
Yeah, right. Yes, please hate us. We used to not say what we grew when we went to cocktail parties because we just didn't want to deal with it. But here's where I'm at with that. It's 70% of the world's supply of almonds come out of California. There are only 3 places in the world you can really grow them at scale. And by the way, 2 of them are not exactly stable environments. Spain and the Middle East are not exactly the most stable places to grow almonds at scale. Australia is our largest competitor, and even they are trying to keep up with us because they have difficult water situation as well. So if you look at just that, that means that we are exporting a vast majority of those almonds, which allows us to have international trade, which brings back GDP to our state and to our country. And so when you look at then California as a whole, you talk about the leafy greens, you talk about the fresh produce, you talk about the citrus, you talk about the dairy, you talk about the wine, and they're all having market issues right now. But if you just look at the cornucopia of everything we grow, a 12th growing season, up and down the state, it's about a 48 to $50 billion industry. I believe Iowa is at about 25, so half of that. And then you look at that seasonal part of it, we are able to sustain fresh produce across the country nationwide because of what we can do in California. The work and world that we've created, I think as we put more emphasis, and I love that we've put more emphasis in this administration on our partners across the North and South American continents, that is allowing us to have leverage in that space because there is a fear that if California becomes so difficult to grow things in, the only other places in the world that has the combination of environment and soil and water are places like parts of South America, are places like the Middle East and the Golden Triangle. And those are not places we want to be dependent on for our food and well-being.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point too. When we're seeing a lot of, I say more eyes on the fact that like farms and ranches are not going back to, the generations because of the cost, because of so many things, and we don't need to go down that path, but it's just people are not going back to their farms and ranches. And then you hear the other side of people just saying like, hey, we don't want international buyers to come in and acquire this land and what we do because we do not want them to be in control of a lot of our resources from what the land provides. What's your thoughts on that? And like, how do you make people educated or aware of the situation? Like, hey, there are things out there that we can help farmers and ranchers, grants, so forth. Like, we need to keep this within the United States. Like, we need to keep our hands on our very own dirt.
Yeah, look, talking to your first point about just multiple generations inside of agriculture, the statistics about how many farms can make it to the second generation, how many farms can make it to the third. Yeah. I mean, it's staggering. I always joke that I really should be in therapy. Instead, I chose this path because all I'm really trying to do is save my family. At the end of the day, that's all I'm trying to do. Maybe I shouldn't admit those things so publicly, but it's the truth. And the idea of what's happening across the landscape is this mass consolidation. If we don't have the ability for effective land transfer or the ability for it to go from generation to generation or have access to land for new and beginning farmers, which is always the hardest part, you do run the risk of mass consolidation and, different approaches. Now, I'm always careful because there are a lot of great American families that farm multi-generation, and they are companies. They are corporations, and they've done that for very strategic purposes to allow them that multi-generation insulation for their operation and for the land. And so I don't want to vilify that aspect of this. The bucolic farmer on the landscape is we love it and we play into it and we should, but at the same time, it's a business and we should be very smart about how we conduct our business. And we should not be so insulting to agriculture and to farmers and ranchers across the country by assuming that they don't and they shouldn't in some way. I am absolutely appalled by those that think that we are evil for making a profit for wind farming, that somehow this is a charity. You will lose the very food and fiber you love if you try to think of it that way. So to your point about, international interest, absolutely. We, under the Trump and Rollins administrations, it is about American land in American working hands. And it is about the protection of that land in perpetuity. And so one of the great programs we have at NRCS is voluntary. So I always couch everything at NRCS is voluntary, which is a beautiful thing. For 90 years, the U.S. government and the American public felt that it was absolutely foundational to us as a country, as a culture, and as a nation and as a people to keep farmers on the landscape and to help them farm to their best ability. And so for 90 years, we have been providing technical assistance to agriculture across the landscape. And since 1996, we've been providing financial assistance as farmers want to invest in their operation to take care of these resources and to protect their land. So one of those programs is our agricultural conservation easement program, the agricultural land easement program, which allows farmers, very similar to like selling mineral rights off the property, but it basically sells the development rights off the property and says, you as a farmer, this land is forever farmland and it can never be anything but. And that program has done some amazing things. It's become a very prominent tool in the toolkit right now for us as we look at the crisis of losing 5,000 acres of farmland a day in the U.S., predominantly to development, looking at where is it the highest and best use to farm and how do we ensure that it stays that way. I also think, and we're exploring this, my associate chief Colton Buckley and I have talked about this a lot, how do we use that program to help new and beginning farmers? Maybe you have someone who the kids aren't going to come back and take the ranch or the farm, and they enroll in an easement to protect it so it stays a farm and it stays a ranch and it has now capital that can be invested back into it from the sale of those development rights. How do we then use that to say, okay, Farmer X, there's this young couple that wants to get involved. They show themselves financially solvent. This is a great place to transfer that land to because it was protected as farmland. You're not running the risk of losing it. And they now have kind of an opportunity to have land access through that. So we're exploring how this tool can be used in a lot of different ways, not only to protect from development, not only to prioritize in the face of competing interests, but also to ensure that generational ability for transfer of land and keeping it productive in perpetuity.
Yeah. Switching gears a little bit, let's talk about women and their role that they're playing in shaping the future of agriculture because they've always been there. Yep. I just think now the platform and the scope on them is a little bigger, maybe, right? Like women have been at the forefront of all this. They've been in the fields. They've been the daughters. They've been the wives. They've been the moms in this industry, but their voices are being heard in a different way. I don't want to say they've never been heard, but they're just being heard in a different way now. And it's really cool to see. What's your take on that? And how neat is it for you to be a part of that and be a female who has a seat at the table, knowing that you are creating a pathway for future females to really have several seats at the table?
Well, I have to, I think, give total props to you because while you're talking, I'm going, yeah, because damn, they gave us a microphone. Like the advent of social media and the ability for particularly women and women in rural communities to leverage it has been brilliant. And I think has done far more in opening the world to the eyes of American agriculture in most recent history that I had only dreamed of. And so the democratization of what these platforms have allowed for us as women and, the ultimate multitaskers, our ability to run the ranch and run a podcast is easy, right? Like, I think it's just been such an amazing force multiplier for us. And so I commend so many of you who use these platforms and have become my dad sends me clips of y'all. Like he's watching this, right? So We are now the leading voice, and it's representative of the statistics. The fastest growing demographic in agriculture is women. And the fastest growing, they've found that in like dairy, they specifically started hiring women to be herdsmen because they're more nurturing. They tend to care, like they've just noticed the herds are healthier and happier. And not that there aren't good male run dairies out there, but I've talked to friends in the dairy sector and they said, oh no, we specifically are targeting women to come in and manage the herd because we just have happier cows and healthier cows in that process. And so I think there's just this awesome place for that. And to your point, we've always been here. I think, for my time and place, I'm here because of so many other women that were before me, right? And to your point, I was thinking about it earlier, and just I have so many women that were mentors that are now friends, and I feel like they're more like my big sisters, but they were exactly that. They were alongside their dad in the operation, watching it build and grow, and now are leading it into that next generation. They were sent to the board meetings, and they were sitting on the boards of the big decision-making outfits around pricing, around standards and quality, around water. And they were the ones that taught me that find that with my own mother, who said, I didn't burn my bra so that you couldn't, so you were entitled to a seat at the table. She said, I burned my bra so you could be in the room and you earn your seat at the table, which told me I had to be just as good, if not better. And so I think as women continue to move in this space, it's one, and I think in agriculture, we never think anything's entitled to us. So that's always a plus. So I think women in ag actually have probably a more powerful opportunity to be women in leadership across the board because of the culture we grew up in, where when we work on the farm, and this, it's life or death. It doesn't matter if you're a woman or a man or you're a boy or a girl on the farm. You show up and you do the job because something will suffer and die if you don't. And it doesn't care if you're a boy or a girl or a man or a woman. And so there's something unique to, I think, women in ag and our role, not only in agriculture and leadership, but also our role in leadership writ large. And I think as I look at the generations that are in leadership, that are more vocal, that are going to these places, I think I would just encourage women to, lean into your ag roots, because that's going to give you a resilience that no other woman has.
Yeah, and I think too, sometimes people are like, FarmHer Rancher, the show that we do, and then even the podcast, they're like, man, are you guys bashing on men? I was like, no, actually, especially coming from ag, we are really grateful and thankful for the men that we've been surrounded by, whether our fathers or grandfathers, brothers, uncles, you name it. Because I feel like generations above and now, like, they're always have been very encouraging. Like it was never a male versus female, because the job just had to get done, right? And things just had to keep moving forward.
I can tell you for a fact, yes, I can tell you every woman that has shaped my career, but I can tell you every man that I would not be where I'm at because of the opportunities they gave me, both in my farming career. I farmed full time for a brief period in my career, and if it wasn't for my neighbors and the men that I knew that I could call and I say, hey, I got a problem, I don't know how to handle this. My dad wasn't available at the time; he'd had an injury, and so and they without all, hey, I'll be right over after coffee. Let me come out. We'll drive it. We'll look at it together. We'll figure it out. And they were there, and they didn't care. It was your neighbor, and it was your friend, and it was your brother and your sister, and we were brothers and sisters in community. There were gentlemen that were titans of industry that early in my career, God love them, they gave me opportunities, and they used to joke that it was like, they called it the scholarship fund. They would just send me to things or send me to meetings that I had no business being in at 22 years old, but they were willing to say, you're that next generation, and we need to invest in that. And they invested their time and their talent by giving me that opportunity and exposure, and I am ever grateful to them for those times and opportunities. And my brother-in-law gave me the best advice when I came up through my career, and he said, if you ever have the chance to sit at the feet of people who know, take it. And so I got my master's in life. I have been blessed to be able to sit at the feet of the men and women in this industry and in so many others who have taught me how to navigate this world. And I am only where I am because of that.
I love that advice. That's great advice from your brother-in-law. Like, that's really, really neat. Great, great advice. On a lighter note, is looking back to how you grew up, and it's such a special, unique way of life, right? Just like out on the farm and doing the different things and seeing, how your family is, really providing for others. Like it's really a selfless job. But do you have any like fun favorite memories of just the way you grew up?
Yeah. I mean, look, I was always little. I was a
You're
pipsqueak.
like, oh, I think
Yeah,
this is
I
good
got
fun.
lots. I was always little, so like there's always the typical, I don't know if you remember, we used to set siphon pipe before we went to drip. And so, constantly I was getting stuck in ditches because like my boots would fill with water and I was little and I didn't know what I was doing. Probably my favorite, just embarrassing farm story was dad was teaching me to drive. I was like 7, right? And I remember we were on like a ditch bank and he goes, okay, and he throws it in the park. He's like, switch out, let's go. And he throws me in the driver's seat. He sits in. This was the first time I wasn't sitting on his lap. I was going to drive by myself. And we were in probably an old Ford F-150. And, I'm sitting there ratcheting the seat up, because I'm little and I'm scooting the seat forward and I'm moving everything, and I remember I grabbed the handle on the side to move the seat back forward. And those old trucks where they were really tightly wound springs in those seats. I pulled the lever and the seat flung so hard it pinned me against the steering wheel. I just remember going thump and being stuck, and my dad just like laughing so hard, and having to like push it back so that I could get back up. It was just, but it's those little things and that make for, we've all gotten tractor stuck and had to have someone come get us, and we've all had to parts break and whatever. But I think those are the little moments that I remember the most, was just being, and that is the wonderful part of if you're in a family operation, and even if like you're in just any kind of farming operation, there is that sense of family of everyone who's involved in it. And so I think those are the greatest memories, is we were just always surrounded by family and sharing those experiences, both good and bad, the heartbreak, the victory, all together.
Yeah, if you weren't doing what you're doing today, what other occupation do you think you would be in? If it wasn't farming or it wasn't, being boots on the ground in DC, what do you think you'd be doing?
Is there a job for a professional hellraiser?
I love that.
Yeah. That's a good question. I joke that my like one day dream job is to own a hardware store.
Of all things, a hardware store. Okay.
I love Ace Hardware, and like that's I don't want to endorse, but I had a great hardware store in the town I was living. I was like, this is just a happy place.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just joke that that's what I'm gonna lose it one day, and that's what I'm gonna go do. But if I weren't doing this, what would I be doing? I honestly, I don't know. I loved farming, and being with my family in that. And that's funny because I remember the day my dad just sat there and goes, so you're not going to law school? I was like, no, I'm not going to law school. I'm going to tell really good attorneys to do what I want. And that's been a lot of fun. I think for me though, I did the finding your why. What is your intrinsic drive? I am driven. I'm never happier than when I have an army to lead and an empire to defend. And so always in that space of advocacy is probably always going to, somewhere where I'm working to identify solutions and motivate people to change, to move in move in the direction of that change to fix it. I thrive on understanding really complex things and then trying to communicate that to others so that they're motivated. And so I think wherever you put me, that's what I'm going to rely on. I'm going to be attracted to those situations and to those types of things where we get to solve problems and we get to make a difference. I remember my mom and dad, when I was serving in Trump 45, we were just on the phone one day and I just wrote it down on a sticky note and it just said, do good work, make a difference, choose to be happy. And so that's what I'd be doing no matter where you put me. And now I'm a wife and a mother, and that is spectacular. And that was, that is whatever I'd be doing. I think I'd want them around. I love my husband. I like my husband, and I love my little one, and I love having her around. And so, where I could tell you this, whatever I'd be doing if I wasn't this, she'd be in the back seat, and he'd be on the phone, and we'd be working on it together.
Yeah, I love that. Off of that, would you say that's the best piece of advice or one of the best pieces of advice? If not, is there another great piece that you've like gotten from your parents that you've wanted to pass down to your kids?
Oh gosh, I think that I have a daughter, and
Hmm.
uh my mom, I mean, they just, I have wonderful, my mom, my father, my aunts, like I've been so blessed with people in my life who've taught me a lot of wonderful things. One of the things that I think is really important for young women, particularly, and I remember my mom telling me this when I was heading to college, and it was, you need to learn to be alone with yourself. And that speaks to two things. Yeah, you need to learn to be alone with yourself and be comfortable with yourself. And for all of our awkward 20s and 30s, that's really hard. But and the world doesn't want us to do that. The world wants us codependent. The world wants us in constant contact with other people. But what's at the heart of that in learning to be alone with yourself is a lot of other lessons tucked into that. One of the other big ones is you don't give your personal power to anything out external. Your power and who you are and the value of what you are as a human and as a person and as a soul comes from God and your opinion of yourself. And the moment that you value an external opinion in some way, you are giving your power away. Now it's owned. Who you are and what you think about yourself, and then your ability to perform or do anything is now owned by that externality. And I just think the more you look at where society has gone, the absolute cowardice of not willing to see people as individuals, but insisting on seeing them as labels and groups, the insistence on your own self-worth being attached to what group and moniker you label yourself with, um, uh, really works to devalue the individual. And that's incredibly, I think, threatening to women in particular. And so anything to then come back to that, know how to be alone with yourself, know, um, uh, uh, that your value is yours. Do not give that or abdicate that to any externality. It's yours and God's, and that's it. And then with that, you will find how incredibly resilient and powerful you are in this life. You can withstand anything when you know that your value is God's and yours, and that's it.
Well, and too, okay, so off of that, personally and professionally, when your time is done, when your work is done, what do you want your daughter to take away from you professionally? And then what do you want her to take away from you personally?
Professionally, good manners and hard work will get you further than money, brains, or beauty. Um, I pride myself, probably almost to my own detriment, of outworking anybody else. And that's not to say that I'm surrounded by everyone here who outworks everybody. So this environment in DC is always hard. um, but I think that's one of the things professionally um, that I would want her to take away. I think personally, um, it comes back to I am constantly evolving and seeking to become that which God created me to be. And that never ends. And I would hope that personally she sees that. She sees and learns that there is incredible beauty in that. And so when you choose to live an examined life, it is much, all of the negative is much more negative because you are seeing it in a much bigger context. It is hard. It's choosing to address the hard things about yourself. It's choosing to address and take responsibility for the way that you react and respond to things. And choosing to integrate that into who you are. That's hard. And that can be really painful. But the upside to of living an examined life is the joy, the sweet, the goodness, the ability to see it, the gratitude is so much deeper. And it touches your soul in a way that I would never trade for anything else.
That Yeah, that's good. Okay, well now we'll get a little lighter now. How about that? We're gonna play a couple games. It's what we like to do. This one's called Roots. I'll start off with a sentence and you have to finish it with your own personal touch.
Okay.
The farm lesson I still use most today is,
I still use most today. The backup camera.
especially probably definitely
Right.
needed in
Pitching a
DC.
trailer is a lot
Okay.
of camera.
One thing people I love that. One thing people misunderstand about farmers is,
That we're businessmen. Like this is a business. And as a result, that this is a business and that we, this isn't great granddad's. This isn't something out of a storybook 100 years ago. Yeah. That we're highly sophisticated.
yep, I couldn't agree more. My mom always, she talks about that a lot. She goes, I just think that they constantly just think we're still wearing overalls and are dumb. And she's like, the clothing options, by the way, overalls were very sufficient. Like they served a purpose. Very smart to make those. The future of conservation depends on,
Oh, outcomes. Depends on outcomes. So this is something that I am very, very passionate about in my time at NRCS. It is no longer acceptable to measure success in dollars on acres. We must measure what the dollars on the acres got us. That belongs to the farmer. It is the outcome for which they are the hero. When they change their cultural practice and they reduce the amount of inputs added, when they conserve the amount, being from out west, how much water we actually are applying, that belongs to the farmer for the investment they made in that practice. Yes, there were dollars that went on an acre, but it got us something. And that outcome has value both in the regulatory space, in the decision-making space, and in the marketplace. And so we are working really hard at NRCS and really working with partners in the marketplace and in the NGO space to say we have got to start measuring the outcome of what was achieved in the implementation of that practice for two reasons. Again, it's the values piece and the market access piece, because you and I both know there's plenty of entities that are saying we want something grown a certain way, but they're not willing to put a dollar ad on that. So they're running to NRCS. The other side to that is, again, the farmer is the only way you achieve that outcome. And so the farmer is the hero of that story. So the future of conservation is going to be absolutely dependent on outcomes and our ability to measure that and give it back to the farmer who it rightfully belongs to.
there you go. Yep. And off of that, conservation succeeds when,
Conservation succeeds when it is managed. So we talk about drive-by conservation, which is, I'm going to do a little bit here and a little bit over there. I'm going to go over here. And there's two ways to look at that. One is conservation succeeds when it is upkept. It's not a one and done. It is a cultural practice shift. And that's what I really work to talk about, particularly with non-ag audiences. When a farmer does a conservation practice, it means they're going to do that over and over and over again. It's not a one and done. It's changing something in the way that they do what they do. And so the success of conservation on the micro scale is the management and upkeep of that, the continuity of that. It can't be just one, I did a cover crop once and now I'm done. No, it's the time over time. It's the integrating that into your culture on your own operation. So success of conservation is the continued management of that. Success of conservation at the macro level is that drive-by piece, which is to say, if we want to create success on a watershed, for instance, and improve the water quality by reducing the amount of runoff, then we can't do disparate pieces of conservation. It must be managed and looked at holistically so that you are getting the maximum ROI. Are you putting the appropriate practice on the appropriate place for the maximum outcome that you are trying to achieve? And thanks to, I think, better local relationships and better technology, we now have the ability to do that and to assess that. And that is where you're going to see, I think, an exponential return on the investment from conservation.
my favorite thing about rural communities is,
coffee shops and gas stations and hardware stores.
I was like, you can't leave out the hardware store.
Oh, we're still in there. And it's all because those are places like, or, being from California, the Mexican food restaurant, right? Like
Yeah, ooh, so good.
everybody in Lemoore goes to the same place. It's where you're going to see everybody. But the coffee shop is where, if you want to know what's going on, or you want to know how people are doing, or you want to understand the heart, it's that coffee shop at 6 a.m., right? So that's going to tell you, and you can sit there for an hour and just watch who comes in, and it'll tell you what the community is and who's there and who lives there, and is there a factory nearby? Is there, you can see it. Similarly to that would be grocery stores. You can find what culture is in that community if you go to the grocery store, because you'll see what they're selling, and it'll tell you what communities are there. I was in Roswell, New Mexico, and there was an entire aisle of Dutch cookies, and I went, there's a Dutch population here somewhere, right? Or you go in the Central Valley, there's usually a Japanese section because we have such a large Japanese community in the Central Valley. So it tells you what the culture is. Same thing about, the hardware store or, the gas station. That'll usually give you a good idea of who's coming, who's going, and what's going on in that community, and what the heartbeat of that community is at that working class, people who live there level.
I always like to tell people just different, friend pockets that we had growing up and things like that. But like, especially here in Fort Worth, I'm like, yeah, on weekends, sometimes I'd go to festas with my friends, or I'd go watch some of my friends whose families were sheep herders, and they're Basque, and they're like, what language are you speaking? I'm like, no, it was really cool to see their cultures, like, and what they do. And I was like, what, you guys didn't have all of that? Like, that was normal for us,
It was. I mean,
a festa is a good time.
If you totally, and plus, like, we don't have dances anymore, so that was half the reason we went. But
Yeah.
to your point earlier about like what do people misunderstand about rural communities, I think they really misunderstand how diverse we are, how culturally diverse we are. Just it's not all people that look like me and you, and we don't know the difference because it's just how we grew up, and those were the communities, and we talk about our culture that way, and we talk about the cultures that we interacted with, and we shared that with each other. We went to the Highland Games one weekend, and we went to the Greek Festival the next, and we went to the Festa all summer long, and that was just life in the Valley because our friends were all parts of those communities, and so we were too.
Yeah, it was so fun. Okay, this one is a good farmer always.
A good farmer always will always stop and help. Good farmer always stops and help, right? How many times you got busted, you pulled over on the side of the road, good farmer will stop, kind of look, hey, you doing okay? You need a jump? What do you need?
Yep, exactly. And this one is when agriculture gets difficult, I remind myself.
Been here, done that.
That's a good one.
Right?
Yep,
Like,
so true.
yeah, how many times right now everything's hard? And how many old timers do you know that are like, let me tell you about the 80s?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, they're like, oh, it'll be fine. Just another storm we have to weather. We got it.
Right. Yeah, I find myself getting very passionate, and I also don't suffer fools well. So anyone or thing that is just redundant or not seeing the broader right and choosing to focus on the minutia wrong will drive me nuts. It will. I don't put up with it very well.
Okay, this game now is called Ag Hot Takes. So I'll throw out a statement and you'll respond with whether you agree, disagree, or think it's complicated, and you can explain why you think it's complicated. Drip irrigation is the greatest ag innovation.
Yes and no. So
Yeah.
yes, I do think it is one of the greatest ag innovations. I mean, you put that in the context of like Norman Borlaug, and I can't argue that. But I think gene breeding actually is probably the greatest ag innovation. But I think it is one of the greatest agricultural innovations. It is up there with that in terms of what it can do from not only the water perspective, the nutrient management perspective, the precision of it, and it's ever evolving. Our ability now to better address plant health through that mechanism, like I said, the nutrient management piece, the ability to control, and the ability to reclaim working land utilizing that technology is spectacular.
Soil health is finally getting enough attention.
Hell yeah. Always. I totally. I worry it's become a buzzword. Actually, I do worry about that it's kind of like, I feel like I'm in The Princess Bride sometimes, where people start rattling off about soil health and I go, I don't think you quite understand what that means. But yes, we are talking about it probably for the first time since the founding of this agency by Hugh Hammond Bennett in the Dust Bowl in a way that is mainstream and spectacular. And we are having a renaissance at NRCS. So absolutely.
That's awesome, actually. Farmers are some of the best problem solvers in America.
Yes, agreed, 100%. If you live a life like we do, where you have so much that you know you don't control, you are problem solving all day.
Yep. This one is funny to me. Every farmer secretly thinks they could run a better weather forecast.
Yes. Absolutely agree. I always check my dad before I check the weather, man.
On that right there. Grocery shoppers would make different choices if they visited farms.
Yes, I think so. I think they would. Yes, I do. We can, it's complicated in that we've got to feed, millions of people who have financial constraints, but, that's our job, is to help make that affordable and accessible to them. And, but I do think they would make different choices if they shopped with a farmer. I actually always wanted to do a video of, like, let's go grocery shopping with a farmer and watch how we shop at a grocery store, because I definitely make decisions that others don't make, because I have the privilege of knowledge that others don't have.
Yeah, that actually would be a great video. It's a great idea.
I always wanted to do it.
It'd be really, really good. The future of agriculture depends on collaboration, not competition.
It's complicated. Yes, collaboration is important, but competition is essential for growth and evolution. And I think agriculture is in a space right now where evolution is essential, as it always has been. Facing challenges on labor, facing challenges on supply chain. I think, and then of course the natural environment. Good, healthy competition makes for better products and solutions. But collaboration I would say collaboration in the helping that get to scale and making it accessible, and sharing how we do things with each other, is essential. And that comes back to the coffee shop. How do you get one farmer to adopt a conservation practice? You make sure he goes to the coffee shop and says, hey, this is how it's working for me. So little collaboration, big competition.
Yep. I love that. I mean, our time is wrapping up. I feel like well, you're busy, so I know I can't, but could talk to you for like several more hours. I know. I was like, there's just so many things. I mean, we might have to do a round 2 of this. But before we wrap up, I just want you to share with our viewers, again, our listeners, anything else that you would want them to know that NRCS is working on, side by side with farmers, or just for the future of agriculture and what that looks like.
Yeah, from an NRCS perspective, we are one of the most forward-facing agencies of the federal government. We have an office in almost every county, as I'm sure a lot of folks listening to this know. I think what's important to remember is a couple things. Our last year has been spent recommitting this agency to its founding principles of helping farmers farm to their highest and best ability. It's important to remember that NRCS started as a technical assistance agency first and foremost. And so we are working diligently from that first principle of keeping a farmer on the landscape is the foundation of a healthy and prosperous society. We are investing in providing the modernization and tools that our staff needs to better service the customer. We're providing them with the freedom and flexibility to make decisions with you, to get you to yes on conservation investment on your operation. We are flipping that business model so this isn't about the program anymore. This is about getting back to whole farm planning and saying, here's what's available to you, not you coming in the door and saying, what do you have for me? And every step of what we've been doing, from streamlining policy, modernizing technology, leveraging our partnerships, where we are being really tough on partners, saying you have to maximize ROI for good leverage to the farmer and ROI for dollars on the ground to the farmer. We don't have an outreach problem in NRCS. We need to reach as many people as we already have coming in our door, and we need to get them the resources they need at scale. And so we are making absolute rapid investment in leveraging those partnerships for technical assistance. And then finally, that outcomes piece. We are pushing really hard to develop and be able to give our producers good information that they can then sit with the NRCS team and work together to make good decisions, or for that farmer to say, I know exactly what I did and what it got me, and take that to wherever they need it for themselves. And so it all, I would say, comes back to that first principle of keeping farmers farming. And what I'm so happy about, this agency is it's been like an awakening to say, why did you join the agency? And most of them joined to do just that. And so helping NRCS get back to its core function has been our mission. And everything we are doing is to do exactly that, to take care of the people that serve the people we take care of. And that's our farmers and ranchers.
Well, again, our time's coming to an end, Chief Bettencourt. I feel like I said it once, I'll say it again. I feel like we could sit here and talk all day. I mean, we could just talk about Valley things, Central Valley girls here. I mean, it's a special place and people don't get it, but I'm like, it's a really, really special place. I really enjoyed my time growing up there, and I know you did too. But just on behalf of like women in agriculture, farming and ranching, thank you for having a seat at the table and being a voice for those that don't have one or feel, a little silenced, and you're just doing and making moves in DC where it matters that affects the rest of us. And so just really, really grateful for everything that you're doing and all the time and energy that you pour into your work for the rest of us.
Well, really appreciate it. And I would be remiss, I guess, on this podcast of all podcasts to say this has been such a unique experience to be the first female chief of NRCS in 91 years. And so it's, I think it's been awesome to, and I hope it's definitely giving, a new face to the agency and showing that, maybe, women running this place is pretty much a really cool idea and a really good idea. So my hope is to whatever we do here lives long after us, and it's good and it's positive, and anyone can come behind and just keep running into victory. So it'd be great.
I love that. Well, again, Chief Bettencourt, thank you so much for joining us here on Dirt Diaries.
Thanks, Kirby.
Awesome. That's it for today's episode of Dirt Diaries, where the women of ag leave no story untold. If you loved what you heard, be sure to subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with someone else. Until next time, keep showing up, speaking out, and getting your hands dirty.